Hi there, I'm Shane. In this video, I'm going to be talking all about the Freewell magnetic variable ND system. This is an extremely interesting set of filters that, as the name implies, uses magnets, metal rings, and polarized glass to make a very versatile set of filters that are quite modular and are up for pretty much any task you throw at them, all while maintaining a pretty decent price point that makes them quite a good value. And I'm going to talk all about them in this video. So this is going to be another video about ND filters. This time, they're the variable ND filters from Freewell. They were kind enough to send these filters to me a couple months ago, and I've been using them as my primary filters for all the work that I've done. So I've done a couple weddings, commercial videos, and YouTube videos as well while using these filters, and I'm excited to talk to you about them. I'm not gonna lie though, when I first received them, I was pretty skeptical just because obviously they're magnetic and I've never used magnetic filters before, though Freewell notably has been making magnetic filters for quite a while now, and the variable ND filters is kind of the culmination of what they've learned, and they obviously made a very complete package here, and I'm excited to talk to you all about them. One thing I'm not going to discuss though is how variable ND filters or just ND filters in general work, because I've made separate videos on the topic, which I'll link on screen right now if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how to use filters like this. What I will discuss though is the build quality, the image quality, and then lastly, a conclusion of how they kind of work together to make a cohesive package. I'll start off though with discussing the build quality and the design. And at first glance, these can be a little bit intimidating because they obviously have a lot more going on than your average single filter. However, it's quite an easy setup to use, and I'll go through each of the components step by step. At the base, its foundation is just a simple metal ring which you thread onto your camera, and it's just your normal threaded lens mount. And on the edges of it, there's very nice knurling for gripping, as well as a red demarcated ring, which helps you kind of set the filters up later. Inside this metal ring, you have the choice to put in one of two filters. There is the base one-stop regular polarized filter, which is the foundation for the variable ND. But you can also have another one that's exactly the same, however has a built-in 1/8 stop mist filter if you want to add a little bit of halation to your highlights. On top of this, you have the choice of two more filters. You can either use a 2 to 5 stop or a 5 to 9 stop ND filter, which is gonna add your variable component. So you can slot this off in basically an orientation that actually lines up nicely. And quite honestly, it's really easy to put on here because there's actually hard stops on either side. So even if you don't line it up correctly, you can simply just spin it around until it hits the grooves, and then you're in the hard stops. I was a little nervous when I first got this, just because obviously with the magnets, I was thinking like it'd come off super easily, but it takes a decent amount of force to pull this off. And in everyday use, while at a wedding or even on a hike where my camera is outside my backpack, I haven't had this pop off on me yet. It is the right balance between being stuck onto your camera while not being impossible to take off. So it is definitely not an area of concern, or at least as much of a concern as I thought it was going to be initially, and it hasn't been an issue for me yet. Where these filters get super interesting for me is the fact that when you flip the variable component upside down on the lens, they become polarizing filters, just straight up polarizing filters with no variable component to them. So the 2 to 5 stop ends up being just a simple clear polarizer, and then the 5 to 9 stop becomes a 5 stop polarizer if you want to get some long exposures. And this is super handy because the obvious application of having a polarizing filter in a pinch will help you cut a certain angle of light if you're trying to shoot through a window or get rid of some reflections. And I'll talk more about the image quality later, but they work really well, and I think it's an awesome additional functionality they added to these filters to allow you to do this. Overall though, the build of these filters is remarkably good, and I've been really impressed with how the magnets hold, and as I said, they haven't fallen off on me, and really you don't need to be any more careful with these filters than you normally would while you have a filter mounted on the front of your lens, because ideally, unless you're a little bit more aggressive than I am, you're not going to be bashing the front of your lens on objects. So with that in mind though, if you want some additional protection, Freewell does send along a magnetic filter cap with it, which you can just pop on top. It's not designed though to be placed on top of the variable filter component, because when you take that off, it usually takes the variable filter along with it. So what you're intended to do is just take the variable component off and have this act as a regular lens cap on the front of your lens. And to compensate for the fact that the variable filter can't really sit there, they do send a very nice carrying case with, which is either made out of leather or more likely a very convincing synthetic leather, which is nice and padded. So it's not like this is a hard case that will bash off other stuff in your backpack. And inside here, you can store all your filters quite conveniently. Relatively speaking, this isn't the smallest carrying case, and you've probably seen smaller filter setups. But the nice thing is you have like a little ribbon that you can pull up, and it has little pockets that are indicated for what filter goes in there. So it's easy to keep track of stuff. And realistically speaking, while you're on the go, having all your filters in one container like this, that is essentially replacing 4 separate variable ND filter setups, or at least polarizing filters and ND filters. This is a remarkably small footprint as well for all those filters put into one container. So while relatively speaking, it is a little bulky, considering what it's replacing is quite compact. So you gain a whole heck of a lot of versatility, because you don't need to constantly be threading off your filters and putting them away and putting new ones on. You can simply just pop off the magnets and pop a new one on. So with that in mind, they're quite small, and you save a lot of space in your bag when looking at it from that perspective. I'll leave it there for now with discussing the build and move on to the image quality. And I'm happy to say that when shooting in 4K, I haven't noticed a discernible loss in quality, and for the majority of users, that's probably the situation they're going to find themselves shooting in the majority of the time, and it does a great job with it. If you're taking images, again, I haven't noticed a loss in resolution per se, though there is a slight increase in diffraction, which is not going to be unique to these filters, because anytime you have a stack filter in front of your lens, light coming in at the odd angle is going to cause a little bit of a muddiness to your image as a whole. But realistically, it's non-consequential the majority of the time and isn't going to be causing you an issue. When it comes to tone and any shift in color, I haven't noticed anything too significant, and more importantly, I haven't noticed anything while actually changing from like 3 to 5 stops or from 6 to 9, because there isn't really a change in the white balance when doing that. There obviously is going to be a slight change in colors, but this is going to be inherent again to the design of variable ND filters, because they rely on using 2 polarized pieces of glass, which cause color shifts, just because when you're polarizing light, that's what happens. So that's inevitable, but it's really well controlled with these filters. The last component of the image quality I'm going to discuss is how the mist filter looks, and it's a 1/8 mist filter. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit of a bad person to talk to about this, because I normally shoot with a 1/8 Pro mist filter on my lenses pretty much in every video where I'm in the frame or have a human subject. So I obviously like it, and I'm happy to say that the 1/8 filter in the setup looks incredibly good, and it's comparable to the footage I normally get with my Pro Mist filter. So yeah, it's great. I like it. And if you want to get additional halation around your highlights by having something like a quarter, you can easily just mount a filter behind this, and then you can have a quarter by adding 2 1/8s together. So if that's the route you want to go, you can always do that, but it looks good for what it is, and I'm very happy with the final results. So now that I've gone over the build, how these filters work together, and the image quality, you can obviously tell why I'm quite impressed. Freewell did a fantastic job of making a filter system here that's able to perform well in so many different situations, and made a fantastic tool for independent filmmakers. If you're shooting a wedding and you need something that's easy to swap out, these filters are so easy to work with, especially if you're shooting something like a low-budget commercial film where you're by yourself and you need to be able to change stuff quickly. these filters are a great option, and you're not sacrificing anything really significant in terms of image quality for convenience here. And at the price point that they're at $400 US, though this is a rather significant investment, if you consider what these filters all can do, if you want to get a comparable setup, you'd need like 4 other filters at the minimum, each of which probably would cost $100 to $200. So if you're looking at something similar from other brands, it'd end up being probably close to $600, $700 minimum. From that perspective, then these filters are a great value, and they certainly will last you a long ways down the road with how well they're built. If you have any questions for me though about them, or want to know how I've been enjoying using them a few years in the future, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you'd like to be seeing a comparison between these and other options on the market, I own a bunch of other filters, and I'd be happy to make a video like that if there's enough interest. As always though, if you enjoyed this video, maybe consider liking it and subscribing to my channel. It really goes a long way to helping me make more videos like this, because I really enjoy doing so. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.